I drank a beer. I drank another beer. 3 beers. 4 beers. 5 beers. 6 beers. 7 beers. 8 beers. I drank a beer.
Anyways, fuck. What was I about to do? 24 to 36-inch bird. I wouldn't even be able to dunk with a 36-inch bird. That's how much
Intuitive
the height
sit to
difference
start on the
is like
all-electric
in
ID4.
frame.
Hello everyone, my name is Isaiah Rivera and I'm a professional dunker. Here's a little bit of what I can do. Today I'm going to be showing you guys what I did to get my vertical from around 24, 25 inches and touching the rim to about 36 inches and being able to windmill pretty easily. I first started lifting when I was 15 years old, and it was actually for basketball. I was trying to make my school team, and I knew that I needed to get stronger in order to be able to compete with everybody. I was always one of the smaller people on my basketball team, so I needed that extra advantage over everybody. Now, obviously, I was pretty weak when I first started training, and in order to get stronger, I started researching more, and I found this book called Starting Strength by Mark Rippetoe. And this helped me build a really good foundation for weight training. Now, in addition to this training, I was also practicing basketball every single day for at least like 2 or 3 hours. And after all my games, pickup games, individual sessions, practices, I would always be trying to touch the rim. And then at home, I would lower my hoop and I would pretend I was Shaq, Michael Jordan, all these NBA players that I admired, and I would try to copy their dunks, do different tricks, and that sort of thing. Around this time, I also found Steven Selly and Nico Christie on YouTube, and I saw that they had tracked their progress from when they were young and not being able to dunk to now being able to throw down dunks like one-handers, two-handers, and windmills. Seeing their progress kind of inspired me to start researching how to jump higher even more. And a combination of this weightlifting that I was doing in addition to all the jumping I was doing, I started to see really good results, and it got to the point where I was almost throwing down my first dunk. I was actually stuck at this level for a few months, and I get a lot of questions today about people that are almost about to hit their first dunk. And literally what I did, I just kept trying. There wasn't any secret formula. I didn't change anything. I just kept trying and trying and trying and trying, and eventually I got it. Now, before I move on, I want to make a really important point. The two most important things that I did at this time was just weightlifting, getting stronger, and the jumping consistently. A lot of people overcomplicate the weightlifting, especially at the beginning. Starting strength is super simple. It's basically just 3 sets of 5 of bench press, deadlift, and squat. And that's all I did. And every workout, I would just try to do a little bit more weight, and that got me stronger, and that's all I needed. And most likely, that's all any you guys need, especially in the beginning. Shortly after I hit my first dunk, I was on the internet researching how to jump higher, and I was on this forum called Adargi, and someone had made a post on this guy whose name was Jordan Kilgannon, and he had just hit the crown dunk. And they were talking about how crazy his progress was. So I went on his YouTube channel, and I went to his oldest videos, and it was him at around 16 years old, barely being able to dunk. And it was mind-blowing to me how he made this progress, and he was actually jumping around the same height I was at the same age. So this was one of the most inspiring and groundbreaking moments for me because it made me realize how much was actually possible. I then found an article by Joel Smith where he interviewed Jordan on what he did to jump higher, and Jordan said that he literally just jumped every single day for hours. After reading that article, an obsession was sparked inside of me, and I started dunking on 10 feet and low rims for hours every single day. And around this time, I also found YouTube channels like Team Flight Brothers and Dunkademics. And hours of my free time was spent watching videos of these freakish dunkers doing stuff that I wanted to do. When I wasn't dunking or watching YouTube videos of dunks, I was researching how to jump higher. And I started buying these jump programs just to see what they're about and to see if I could pull anything from them. And specifically, I bought Jump Manual and Vertical Jump Bible. Around this time, I also learned the importance of jump technique. And I actually bought a program called Vert Freak Technique by Adam Linkenauger and Coach Rocky. And that kind of built a foundation on the proper approach technique for 2-foot jumps. And after that, that kind of opened my mind to studying other dunkers that jump the same way I did. So I started obsessively studying my jumps, other jumpers that were also left, right like me, and I would spend hours comparing it and seeing what I could improve. And I started noticing when I would improve a certain aspect of my jump, for example, lengthening my penultimate stride, I would instantly jump like 1 or 2 inches higher. And I started figuring new things out every like 2 or 3 weeks, and the progress just kept going up and it started becoming ridiculous. One day I posted one of my attempts on hitting a windmill on 9.6, and Jordan Kilgannon responded to me with some advice on it, and I then went on to hit the windmill, and he started helping me more and more, and he opened my eyes on the world of dunk technique and how to train a little bit more properly. This period of time where I got really obsessed with dunking happened the summer before my senior year. And that's the summer I made the most gains just from dunking every single day in training. And when school started, conditioning for basketball started and practices started. And it got to the point where I was going to basketball practices for 2 or 3 hours and then coming back home and then dunking for another 2 or 3 hours. All this intense training is obviously very hard on the body, and I was doing stuff every single day. So I would do it for about a week, and then I would rest a couple days, and I would come back jumping higher. And I just repeated that process, and eventually I was able to hit my first windmill on 10 feet and built up to around a 36, 37 inch vertical. Thanks for watching the video.
With new Cascade Platinum Plus, I load this and get this. Dare to dish differently.
It was just such a big inspiration. I was watching. Today, I'm gonna be taking you guys on my journey on how I went from a 36-inch vertical at 17 years old, being able to windmill, to later at 20 years old recording a 44.5-inch vertical at dunk camp. And if you guys haven't checked it out already, make sure you go watch my 24 to 36-inch vertical video. I made that back in July, and I know this video has been a long time coming, but the time is now. Let's get it, baby. All right, so I hit my first windmill when I was 17. This was right before my senior year basketball season was about to start. And around this time, I started to get extremely obsessed with dunking. I started to realize that I wasn't going to be playing basketball in college. And I just honestly just started falling in love with dunking. I started to really get into the community on Instagram and YouTube. Started to get a lot of support from all the dunkers, and just seeing everybody's progress in the dunk community, especially from channels like Dunkademics and Team Flight Brothers. It was just such a big inspiration. I was watching hours of footage every single day. And it got to the point where I was going to basketball practices. I'd have them every day for like 2 or 3 hours, and then I would come back home, lower the rim, and dunk for another like 3 hours. This started to become a thing I was doing every single day. I would dunk right after school, eat dinner, come back outside, dunk inside, do homework, dunk again. Sometimes I would dunk late at night, like it'd be like 12 at midnight, and I'd still be dunking. Just started to get like ridiculously obsessed with it. Something that's also really important is during my dunk sessions, I started trying everything. That's something I love about dunking, is that you can just let your imagination run wild. You can be extremely creative. And every single day, I started just trying to hit a new dunk. Mind you, this is during low rim sessions, and when I would go outside, like I had to do something new. I'm somebody that gets like bored very easily, and I have to constantly be stimulating my mind with new things. And with dunking, it was the same thing. Like I wasn't satisfied just being able to do a windmill or between the legs. Like I want to do a 360 between the legs, and after I hit a 360 between the legs, okay, now I can do a 360 cuff. All right, I did that. Maybe go to a behind the back and start doing backboard variations off a lob. Every single session, it was something new. Now, since I was in the middle of basketball season, fatigue was obviously a big factor, and our coach wasn't having us lift. So I actually wasn't lifting at all during a period of like 2 or 3 months that basketball season lasted. So it was literally just my basketball practices and then dunking every day. And I rarely got time to rest. And something that's really important is I was actually going through knee pain. I actually had Osgood-Schlatter's, which is a type of knee pain, since before I even hit my first dunk. And it's something I always dealt with, and it was really stupid of me, but I just like fought through that knee pain. I jumped through it. I didn't really try to manage it, and it was like getting worse gradually, but not to the point where I couldn't jump. I still jumped every single day. Around this time, New Year's was coming up, and I actually made it a resolution or a goal that I would hit a between the legs in 2015. And between the legs was a dunk for me that was like a really high level elite dunk. Nobody in my area could do a between the legs dunk. I think most people never see a between the legs dunk in person. So it became a really big goal of mine, and I wrote it on a calendar and just started practicing the hell out of it on low rims. I started practicing it, getting it on 9 foot, then 9.6. And actually on January 2nd, the second day of the year, I hit the between the legs dunk. Now I had made it a resolution to hit it like in 2015, and I did it on the second day. This was crazy to me, and in my mind I was like, what the hell, like what now, you know? So I posted it online, and everybody was like freaking out. Like it had been less than a year since I hit my first dunk. So in 1 year I went from just doing a regular one-hand dunk to being able to do a between the legs dunk. And I remember on Facebook, I got messaged by this other dunker who was really famous at the time. His name's Willie Rhodes. And in the message, he told me to make a new list for the year of goals, and to just think of dunks that I would have thought were like impossible to hit, like dunks that are just insanely hard that I would never even imagine like trying at that time. And he said those should be my goals. So I went on my notes, made a new dunk list, and I started working on those. Around this time, basketball season ended, and this list I had became literally all I could think of. Like nothing else mattered to me. When I woke up, it was thinking about dunking and that list. Throughout the day at school, it was thinking about dunking and that list. I became so obsessed with it. I started filling my notes with ideas and tips and ways that I could make certain dunks work. And the process to hit a new dunk was always the same. I would hit it on 8 foot, then raise the rim to 8.5, hit it there, and just work my way up until I was trying it on 10 feet. And with that method, I was hitting new dunks every single week. Something that's really important to consider in terms of mindset was my passion for dunking. I didn't really care about like training for it in the weight room, just because I was more obsessed with the actual act of hitting new dunks and progressing that way, and not so much the weight room side of things. And that's basically all I was doing. As far as like lifting and stuff like that, I didn't really have a schedule. Something that was starting to affect me a lot was my knee pain and how I would treat things. I would basically just dunk a couple days in a row. My knee would start hurting. I would rest a little bit because of that. And then when the knee pain would go down, I would repeat the same process. I would start dunking a couple of days in a row again, sometimes multiple times a day. I would just go to the weight room a couple times a week and just squat, deadlift, power clean a little bit. There would go periods of like 2 or 3 weeks where I wouldn't touch the weight room. I would just be so obsessed with dunking, like I was having so much fun with it. It's almost like comparable to how someone would practice in basketball. A lot of hoopers, aren't worried about like the weight training and stuff like that. They're worried about learning new moves, working on their ball handling, working on their shooting. That's how I treated dunking, and my vertical was just climbing up slowly. Around this time, I also got admitted to UCF, which was really dope because I would now be closer to Steven Selly and CJ Champion. Now I'd be able to have dunk sessions with them. So I was really excited for that. And then as the summer hit, I remember Jordan Kilgannon, I did a FaceTime call with him. And he saw all the work I was putting in, how fast I was improving, how much I love dunking. And he just saw a lot of potential in me. So he FaceTimed me and he basically just talked to me about training and stuff about mindset. And as far as training, he helped me come up with a schedule that would be basically dunk day, then a lift day, then a rest day, and then just repeat that. And I decided to do stuff like compound movements like squats, deadlifts, power cleans on my lift days. And as far as mindset, just trying to become the best in the world, man. So at this point, I'm 18 years old. I'm going to UCF. I'm having a lot of sessions with the Florida squad, Steven, CJ, Nico, Peter, Dylan, all those guys, and having the time of my life just dunking with everybody. And I had gone my first year like just dunking by myself, so it was surreal, like being able to have sessions so frequently with everybody. And I was starting to feel like I was pretty good. Usually I was the best dunker at these sessions, and I was feeling like the man, like I was feeling like I was like one of the best dunkers, And then October hits when I'm 18, first semester in college, and one of the best surprises of my life happens. I get invited to go to this dunk session, and when I get there, I get surprised by Jordan Kilgannon himself. I had no idea he was going to be there. He flew all the way down to Florida just to dunk with us. And this is one of the biggest impacts on my dunking that ever happened. Seeing Jordan dunk, quite frankly, made me realize how much I sucked. Now, remember, I was feeling like I was the man. And then just seeing him jump and specifically how high he could jump, it just blew my mind, and realized that he was on another level, that there was levels to this stuff, that elite dunkers are a different breed in terms of vertical, and then just the sheer amount of dunks he could do and the consistency he could do them with. That first session, I think he dunked for 5.5 hours, and it was elite dunk after elite dunk the entire 5 hours. And I was blown away. I had never seen anything like it. I never dunked with somebody that was that much better than me. And it just changed my whole perspective on dunking. Another experience that was really important for me was right after Jordan visited, UCF held a student dunk contest. And it was me, CJ, and Steven that participated. And at the dunk contest, I wanted to do it between the legs. I had been getting really consistent with between the legs and all that. And then I go out to the contest and I don't even get close to between the legs. And this was kind of my first experience with realizing that dunking on 10 feet is a completely different animal from dunking on 9'9" and 9'10". So that kind of made me buckle down and just start trying to get more consistent on 10 feet. So that combined with seeing Jordan dunk and seeing that I needed to get my vertical up, I started to weight train a lot more, and then just start trying to dunk on 10 feet a lot more as well. And then a couple of months later, I had my second dunk contest. I beat Porter Mayberry. The rim was 10 feet. I hit a between the legs dunk on there. Then I did another competition in Tampa. Didn't do as well as I hoped. That motivated me all over again to just kick it into overdrive with my training. And the entire like beginning of 2016, I just went super hard with training. I got a lot stronger in the weight room, and there was again no real schedule or formula behind it. I was just going in there and getting strong with all my compound lifts, and I kept dunking consistently. One of the, I guess, rules that Jordan Kilgannon taught me in that FaceTime call was never to go more than a week without jumping or dunking. Even if you don't have a hoop, just go out and go do max approach jumps. And I lived and died by that rule, and that created a lot of progress. And it got to the point where around March, April, May 2016, like I was just hitting another level of vertical. I was hitting new dunks and just getting a lot better at dunking. Now, after summer 2016 ended, I probably made the worst mistake I ever could have, and I decided to stop lifting. My reasoning, honestly, I just wanted to experiment. I wanted to take a year off from lifting and see how good I could get by only dunking and not weight training at all. Around this time, I also decided to change my arm swing. I normally had like a pendulum arm swing, and I changed it to a circular arm swing. During this year as well, around end of 2016, early 2017, I started doing a bunch of events, and knee pain started to become a huge problem just from all the dunking I was doing and then no lifting, so I wasn't like getting strong. Like the knee pain just became terrible. Around April 2017, I decided to change my arm swing back to my pendulum arm swing, and then decided to start lifting again. And instantly within a month, I started leveling up again. So that entire like end of 2016, early 2017 year, like I was stalled. My vertical basically did not improve, and I guess I was just stalled from just jumping every day. Like I took the benefits from that to its max, and I plateaued just from the dunking by itself. And my bounce started climbing back up, but my knee pain was always there. And around this time is actually when I did Dunk League Season 2. And during Dunk League Season 2, the knee pain actually is what stopped me there. And after Dunk League, that was another kind of like eye-opening experience on the things that I needed to work on, that I needed to focus back up on training even more. So right after Dunk League, I decided to start doing a popular jump program at the time, and I started progressing really fast again. And it was really good to just be on a period-as jump program that I could follow. Also around this time, I met one of my good friends now, John Evans, and he's been one of the biggest influences on me in terms of jump training. And the first day I talked to him on the phone, it was very eye-opening. He explained to me how a lot of dunkers train poorly, and just gave me a lot of information that just opened my mind up to the world of like track and field training and how to make my training more efficient. And he actually offered online coaching, but I was in the middle of doing this jump program and wanted to stick with it, so I told him no. I started to jump extremely high. So now it's early 2018, and I'm jumping my highest ever, but my knee pain is coming back like really, really bad. It got to the point where I was starting to question like my dunk career. Like I was starting to question if I would even be able to reach my potential, if I would be able to be a dunker at all, because of how bad the knee pain was. It was affecting my dunking, my training. And during this whole time, I'm communicating with John, and he's starting to learn about how to cure tendinopathy and all that. And I can't do bounce kit anymore because the knee pain is so bad. And during this time, I have a sponsorship with Powerade. And I told John, I was like, yo, like, I'm really desperate right now. I don't know what to do with my knees. After I finished this last couple of weeks with Powerade, I am ready to do whatever you tell me I have to do to heal my knees up. So the first thing that John told me I would have to do as part of the rehab process is not dunk, not play basketball, and not to do any movements that cause pain on my knee. Now, mind you, one of the first tips that Jordan Kilgannon had ever gave me was never go more than a week without jumping. So it hurt a lot to have to follow that advice, but it had been now at this point 4 years of dunking, 4 years of dunk training, and never going more than a week without jumping. So I was ready to get rid of this knee pain, and I committed to it. And then from there, he taught me how to do isometrics. We started working on some slow strength progressions with squatting, and the goal was to be healthy enough to do dunk camp. Dunk camp was in 8 weeks, I believe, from this point. It took 6 weeks of no jumping to be able to finally work my way back to doing like box jumps and things like that. And after I came back and I jumped with no pain, like honestly, that just made me put my complete trust into John and his training. And not only that, after we progressed from box jumps to actual dunks, I was jumping my highest in my life. And like I think I had only two sessions coming back before dunk camp. And I did dunk camp, had no issues there. And I tested my vertical and I got that 44.5-inch vertical, man. And from there, it's been another journey. It's been a whole nother journey to that 48-inch vertical. But that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, comment.
Nah, if I couldn't play basketball and I couldn't like run, I couldn't off my
No discipline and the TFL just got bad. So
like not even on no depressing shit. Like I just couldn't live like that because I would just be so sad. I would just be so sad. It would just be so boring. It would just be so boring. It's like my whole life. My whole life is like based on being active. So.
Hello everyone, my name is Isaiah Rivera and I'm a professional dunker, and here is a little bit of what I can do.
That's what I wanted.
Today
I either wanna die young, or I wanna keep my vert and everything like high, all my physical attributes high while I'm older, because I wouldn't be able to live. I wouldn't be able to live. It would just be too ass. It would just be too ass. At a certain point, like I would just get so bored and so depressed. It would be so annoying. But yeah.
I'm going to be showing you guys exactly what I did to go from a 44.5-inch vertical to a 50.5-inch vertical. So this journey starts when I tested a 44.5-inch vertical at dunk camp. To get to that point, I basically just got my knees a little bit healthier. They weren't fully healed yet, but just training to get my knees healthy allowed me to achieve that 44.5-inch vert. At that point, I was just following a simple load management protocol of having a jump day, doing slow strength the day after that, then taking a off day to do isometrics, and just repeating that same schedule over and over again. Right after I tested my 44.5, I basically followed the same schedule, but I started lifting more intensely and not just doing slow strength with things like deadlifts and back squats and power cleans. During this time, John also decided to take some time off from online coaching for a few months because of some personal issues he was dealing with at the time, and I started getting invited to do a lot of dunk competitions. I was working at the time for a place called Academy Sports and Outdoors, and I was basically going in at 4 a.m. every single day and doing lots of heavy lifting, getting stuff from the trucks and loading it up into the store. And this was really hard on the body. And when I started getting asked to do these dunk competitions, I asked my manager for some time off so I could do these dunk contests. The manager said, no, you can't have time off. So I basically just quit on the spot so that I could go into one specific dunk contest. Unfortunately, they replaced me last second with another dunker in that dunk contest. So now I was stuck with no dunk contest and no job, and I didn't know what to do. So with the knowledge that I had acquired from John coaching me for the past year, I decided to start coaching people online. It was the first time I had started doing this. That way I could keep working while still being able to focus on all my dunks. And I really started to get a lot more knowledgeable as a coach during this time. I started progressing a lot with my simple lifting schedule of back squats and deadlifts. Mind you, the couple of years before that, I had barely lifted, so I started seeing a lot of like newbie gains, if that makes sense. And I started having some of my highest jumping days ever. But unfortunately, there was one day where I was playing basketball and I went up for a block and I landed on someone's foot and I sprayed my ankle really, really badly. So I wasn't able to dunk anymore. Now, something that is really helpful that I still continue to this day is I started seeing injuries as a blessing and not as a curse. I just saw injuries as an opportunity to learn more about my body. That way I could coach athletes about the injury that I had so that they can prevent it. And then I also was able to focus on other parts of my body that before, because I was healthy and I was dunking a lot, I might have neglected. I was able to rehab my ankle sprain to the point where I could start jumping again, and I got invited to this thing called HEG Dunk Weekend. And this was basically where Ben Patrick, now known as Knees Over Toes guy, back then he was nowhere near as big as he is now. He basically invited a bunch of dunkers that were big influencers and taught them all about his methods that he uses to train. I was basically completely sold from what he said, and I actually started doing the HEG workouts for about 2 months, and I completely went away from all the stuff that John had taught me. During that period of time, I actually started jumping a little bit lower, and John had started online coaching again. And my roommate and best friend at the time, Austin Burke, he started getting coached by John again. And I saw that he had started coaching him, so I basically asked John if he would be cool with coaching me again. And this was around January 2019. The training that I started doing then was completely different from anything I had done before. Up until that point, I had done just very basic lifting, just basically deadlifting and back squatting and knee rehab. That was all I had done. But when I started up with John again, I was at a point where I could handle kind of more intense training, and we started doing sprinting, power clean complexes, started doing stuff like barbell lunges, barbell squat jumps, stuff that I had never done before. Within a week, I could already see a huge difference in my jumping, and I basically completed 3 different mesocycles. I went through 2 strength cycles and then a power cycle, which this whole process lasted 3 months, and at the end of the 3 months, I was jumping my highest ever. And during a trip to Utah, I actually tested my vertical, and I touched 12 feet for a 47-inch vertical, which was about a 2.5-inch PR, which was just in a span of 3 months of working with John, which is just absolutely insane. So by this point, John had completely transformed my athleticism 2 times. Once by getting rid of my knee pain, and the second time by PRing my vertical in 3 months. So I was just completely bought into what he had to teach me, and I understood that he was probably the best person in the world when it comes to jump training. So now I was jumping my highest ever, and the amount of force I was able to put into the ground, the amount of power I was able to generate was way higher than into what he had to teach me. And I understood that he was probably the best person in the world when it comes to jump training. So now I was jumping my highest ever, and the amount of force I was able to put into the ground, the amount of power I was able to generate was way higher than anything I'd have ever experienced before. And there was actually one session where I was having my best jumping day ever, and I had a really bad lateral quad pull. I had never suffered any type of muscle strain before, and I think I took a week off, and then when I came back, tried jumping again, and just pulled it even worse. Around the time this quad pull happened, I actually got asked to do a dunk contest called K54, which is gonna happen in only 2 months. So from March to June 2019, I literally just focused on healing up my quad pull. And like I said earlier, I just used that opportunity to learn more about my body. And I also used that time to completely focus on getting my knees healthy. Up until this point, I had gotten them healthy enough to where they could handle regular training, but they weren't completely pain-free, right? And I used this time of not being able to jump to just focus on isometrics, slow strength. And because of having this quad pull, that actually was when my knees just got basically the most resilient they ever have, and got completely rid of the knee pain. And my left knee has actually never experienced pain ever since this moment. So I actually see that quad pull as a blessing. Luckily, we were able to take care of the quad pull by the time K54 came around. I won that competition, which was my first overseas competition ever. And then from there, I just started dominating the pro dunking circuit. I won a bunch of FIBA 3x3 competitions, killed some dunk shows, and I also hit the 360 behind the back between the legs, which just went super viral, and my follower count went up on Instagram, and everything was just going really well. And during this whole time, I was just committed to whatever plan John was writing for me, and it was the highest quality training that I had ever done, the most consistently I had ever trained, and I was staying very healthy, and I was literally just showing up every single day to the gym, not missing even a single workout. During this period of time, I got my back squat up to 365 pounds, my deadlift went up to 425 pounds, and my power clean was at 245 pounds. So I was the strongest I had ever been by far, and it showed in my jumps. So my body was feeling very resilient, no injuries. I was jumping high, and it started getting to my head. I started becoming very confident in my body, just having multiple sessions every week, playing a lot of basketball, all while doing all the lifting on top of it. And in December 2019, it all caught up to me. I did a 2-hour session, and then right after, I went to do some heel elevated front squats, and I felt a very sharp pain in my right knee, which ended up being PFP, which is completely different from the other type of knee pain I had, which was just regular tendinopathy. Luckily, I was able to train around the injury by doing bottoms up squats, which was some of the toughest workouts I had ever done in my life. I was able to do upright sprinting as well, and because it was my right leg and that's my block foot leg, it didn't affect my jumps too much, but the only thing it affected is I couldn't do any like back squatting or anything where my knee got into that quarter squat position. I then got invited to a dunk contest in Australia in February 2020. I still was dealing with the PFP, but luckily because of the training I was doing around it, I was able to maintain my fitness, and I was jumping super, super high in Australia. But sadly, the day of the dunk contest, I had a freak injury where I landed on the basketball during warm-ups, and I sprained my ankle really bad. And at the time, is the worst ankle sprain I had ever gone through. I had also graduated from college, so I was trying to decide what I was going to do with my life, but then COVID hit. So now I was stuck with an ankle sprain, not able to make any content for social media or YouTube. I had no job because I had just graduated, and there was COVID. So there wasn't even anything that I could do to make money, and it was a really bad time. So during the last 6 months of 2019, John had actually taken me under his wing and mentored me as a coach, and I was training a lot of guys online. I was also training a lot of people in person, and John saw that I could kind of hold my own as a coach, and we actually decided to team up and start THP Strength. And because of COVID, we came up with some body weight programs that guys could do while they were in quarantine. And this just absolutely took off during COVID and allowed us to make a living during this really tough time that everybody was going through. So because of quarantine, I had no gym access, so I was just doing body weight workouts. But John told me he had a weight room at his house, so I decided to drive all the way to North Carolina to move in with him. And during that time, I went through some of the most intense training I had ever done in my life. It was the hardest I had ever trained by far. The reason being, because of my ankle sprain, I couldn't dunk. So the only thing I could focus on was my weight room work. And my lifts just absolutely blew up during that time. I went from a 365 squat to 382 pounds. My power clean went from 255 to 274. And during all this, I was still just sprinting a lot. We were doing hill sprints, long upright sprinting. We were doing some plyometrics, just very robust and high quality training. And I stayed there for probably 2 months. So it was around 2 to 2.5 months of training. And near the end, I was warming up one day doing side squats, and I felt a sharp pain on my hips, specifically on the greater trochanter, which I had never experienced before, but it was so slight that I didn't really think anything of it. I then moved back to Florida, and I completely unloaded from training, and I decided to test my vertical while I was at the gym playing basketball. They happened to have a Vertec there, and I was feeling great. And during that time, I tested a 48-inch vertical, which was a 1-inch PR officially. And I was super stoked about that. It had been about a year and a half since I had last tested my vertical. And shortly after, for about a month, I was having some of the best sessions of my life. I was jumping over cars, getting my head over the rim consistently. And I started getting that superhuman feeling again. And during one specific lifting session, I power cleaned 295, and I let my back round at the bottom in order to catch it. And my back felt a little off right after that. And right after that rep, I decided to load up the bar with 295, not warming up for the back squats at all. And I back squatted, and I just felt a really sharp pain in my back. Then the day after, I went to go play basketball. And in basketball, you're in back flexion a lot when you're like going for loose balls or bending over, like kind of in a crossover. And my back just started feeling really, really bad. Then right after that, the next day, I went on a flight and I fell asleep in a bad position. And when I woke up, my back was in the most horrible pain I had ever felt in my life. Literally any activity hurt. Just lying down hurt. I could barely walk. And I started getting really depressed because of all the progress I had made, and it felt like it was just all gonna go out the window. So I started doing a ton of research on back pain, and specifically it was on Stuart McGill. And I started doing his methods. Pain started getting a little better. I completely took out deadlifting and deep back squats and started front squatting a lot. Now, if you remember, back in May, my TFL had flared up, and during these last couple of months, in addition to the back pain, my TFL was gradually getting worse and worse. And one of the few things I could do was jump when I had the back pain, so I started having no discipline, and the TFL just got bad. So this is the tail end of 2020, and my body was basically just completely broken. I cut down on the volume of jumping a ton, and I was basically literally just doing front squats, because front squats was one of the few lifts I could do without my back flaring up, and it allowed me to get some kind of max strength stimulus. So for like 6 months, all I did was front squat, and I think my front squat got all the way up to 345. I was also able to get my back to the point where I could sprint again and do some of the more intense like plyometrics, but I basically just cut away all deep squatting. I was only half squatting and front squatting and no kind of deadlifts at all. Instead, I was just doing power cleans because it's not as heavy of a hinging movement. So during this time, while I was able to get my back pretty healthy, the TFL pain got really bad, and it got to the point where I would do a drop step jump and I would feel a 7 or 8 out of 10 pain in my greater trochanter. We realized that the pain was probably a tendon, so we started treating it just like tendinopathy, started going through a load management protocol, ISO, slow strength, progressing to depth landings, and then drop step jumps all the way to approach jumps, and we were able to get the pain down to a very manageable level. Now it's around February 2021, and I decided to test my vertical again, and I was able to max out the Vertec pretty easily, which was a cool sign. It showed that I was able to maintain my vertical and strength throughout all these injuries. And then me and John, we actually got hit up by one of the clients we trained at THP who lived in the Bay Area, and he wanted us to move all the way over there to train him in person. So all the THP guys, me, John, Austin, TJ, we all moved to the Bay Area. And while I'm there, I start doing some very high variety training. I start doing plyometrics for the first time in my life. Lots of sprinting. I'm doing some kind of new methods of lifting. Like we were doing like eccentric focus training, overcoming isometrics, just all kinds of things. And in the span of about 6 months, I got my vert really, really high, went to dunk camp, maxed out the Vertec there again. So again, I'm hitting 47, just matching my PR each time. But I'm not testing any higher. And then I go to a dunk league and I jump super high there as well. I then moved to 29 Palms, which is just a brutal training environment. It's really high elevation and it's the desert, so it gets to 120 degrees. And in addition to being in this crazy training environment, John proceeds to assign me the most brutal training cycle ever. We reintroduced deep back squats because my back was feeling good, and we start doing high volume training, sets of 10, 12, 14. 100-meter sprints, 120-meter sprints, just really difficult training. And my fitness and how resilient my body was just increased a lot this cycle. And I start doing some sessions with Billy, and I just noticed that my bounce looks completely different now. I get some really ridiculous height checks, but I don't get to test my vertical. But I start hitting just dunks like 360 under both and 360 East Bay off the glass consistently, which are dunks that require a lot of vertical, and now I'm just hitting them with ease. I start getting super carried away with the sessions. Like I start having 2.5 hour sessions every single week, and my TFL pain starts acting up. So we decide to go back on load management, which is basically jump twice a week and 2 lifts per week. And I start just doing very slow squats, just building my way back up. And as my pain gets better, start increasing the weight and start increasing the tempo. And I also start adding deadlifts back in, which it had been about 2 years since I started doing
50 jump
deadlifts.
squats and 2
And in the span of about 3 months, my deadlift went from 425 to about 455. We're now about 6 weeks out from dunk camp, and John asked me basically, what do I want to do? Do I want to do some more specific training, or do I just want to keep hammering away at the strength? And I tell him, just keep giving me strength. I want to keep getting stronger. I've been jumping higher because of it. Not confirmed by Vertec, but I just feel like I was jumping higher. So I said, why not? Let's keep going. So John writes out 2 3-week cycles for me to do. They're both strength cycles. And the goal is to just PR my back squat and deadlift. Now, if you remember, late in 2021, the focus was on high volume training with the deep back squats. But now we're going from high volume to high intensity. So instead of doing the sets of 10, 12, and 14, now I'm doing doubles, triples, singles when I deload. And my squat and deadlift just skyrocket. My squat goes from 382 to an easy 405, and my deadlift goes from a 455 to a 485, which are just massive PRs. I then deload, I go to dunk camp, and the amount of adrenaline and excitement that I was feeling was insane. Literally the day I tested, it felt like I was gonna throw up, and then I just easily tested 50, and then the next jump tested 50.5, and it was just absolutely surreal just seeing all these years of progress finally come to fruition. And it had gotten to the point where I was starting to think that maybe a 50-inch vertical was impossible. Maybe I had plateaued. But man, I just never got derailed by all the injuries. I stayed focused, used everything as a learning experience. Every single injury, every single setback was an opportunity to learn about my body. And it just allowed everything to come together at the end. And I finally tested the 50.
We got 30 more squat jumps. I can't wait to be done with this shit. I cannot wait to be done with this shit. I hate this shit so much. I want to dunk, but like I don't care for this. I just want to do it, you know. Doing what I have to though. Have to do it if I want to dunk. Have to do this shit if you want to dunk. Have to jump every day, bro. Or you could just be 6 foot, but I'm not 6 foot. I don't know how I'm not 6 foot. My dad's 6 foot, but that's how I know it's not all genetics. Because if it was all genetics, I would be 6 foot right now. Shit doesn't make any sense. If it was all genetics, I would not be 6'2", and I would be 6 foot at least. Which makes no sense. Done. Done. Nah. Now I'm gonna have to use the poggles. That's the easy part. I'll be back in like